Great. Hi, everybody. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Elaine Chang, the Senior Manager for Global Market Development for TerraWorks. And we're super excited for today's webinar because we're welcoming several hosts to share their great work. They'll also be sharing how they've built a robust information system for offline field operations for clean cookstoves. The organizations that we work with oftentimes have really complex processes that require collaboration and communication between multiple groups of people, like trainers and technicians, evaluators and managers. But in the places that development organizations are working, that means all this needs to happen while field staff are largely offline and very distributed. So it's certainly a challenge, but there are solutions for this. So today, we're going to explore how both an offline mobile app for field staff and an SMS tool work together on Salesforce.com to create a comprehensive system that keeps everybody connected and on the same page. In terms of who we're joined by, so we have folks from Proyecto Mirador. So Proyecto Mirador is a nonprofit that sells gold standard voluntary market carbon offsets to pay for the construction of their dos por tres fuel-efficient stoves in rural Honduras. These stoves remove toxic smoke from homes, reduce CO2 emissions that cause global warming, help prevent forest degradation, and create jobs through their use of local entrepreneurs. They've been in operation for 13 years and have installed over 130,000 stoves to date. And through those have reduced CO2 emissions by 1 million tons. So we're joined by Esther and Ranieri from Proyecto Mirador. And then from TACT, TACT is an L3C that provides consulting services and software, including the mobile SMS tool for Salesforce. And you'll get to see more of this later. And Stephen from TACT is joining us as well. So in terms of the flow for today's presentation, I'll give a quick overview of the TerraWorks app. Stephen will share more about the Mowgli SMS app, and then Esther and Ranieri will share how Proyecto Mirador is using these tools along with Salesforce for their program. In terms of housekeeping rules, this webinar is being recorded. Everybody is on mute automatically. We'll be taking questions at the end, but feel free to shoot questions through if there's any kind of clarification that you require. You can either raise your hand, or when we do questions at the end, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you can type your question in to the chat window. Great. So let me go into, oh, there's Esther's photo. Great. Let me go into the overview. So in terms of what TerraWorks is, our vision is to make it as easy to manage across the last mile as it is across the first mile. And our mission is to do this by improving product and service delivery to the poor by bringing real-time data to any organization anywhere. So we've worked with 90 clients across 37 countries at this point. And we realize this vision by providing an offline mobile CRM, or a relationship management tool. TerraWorks is used by development organizations that need visibility into their field operations, their field staff, by sharing data. So there are two parts to the tool. There's a Salesforce backend where all of the forms, mobile forms, are created, and that's also where all the data is stored for reporting. Once forms are created, you can publish them, and that's when they become available on the other part of the tool, which is the Android app. So this is in the hands of a field staff. They're able to upload information and also download information from that Salesforce database, so they're always working from the same source of data. I think it's important to note that we do focus on organizations that have field staff, so it's a human intermediated approach where they are then collecting information from the end user. So the Android here really acts as a channel to and from the main Salesforce database. We've designed it so that it really goes beyond just data collection. There are a lot of challenges for field staff in these offline areas. One of the focuses for us is mobile CRM, so being able to assign records to field staff so they get a very personalized view of just their accounts. They can also do, kind of related to that, they can look up information about historical information for those accounts. There's also performance targets, so managers can track weekly or monthly targets for each of their field staff, and then field staff can see how they're doing against their individual goals as well. There's also a point of sales aspect to it. We have barcoding, so a lot of groups are managing sales or distributions using the tool while they're offline. There's access to files for field staff to pull up resources, training videos, or Word files. And then they can also see automatic scores while they're offline as well. So that, in a nutshell, is TerraWorks. Let me switch this over to Stephen here. Stephen, I'm going to give you the presenter role. Great. Able to see it. Stephen, I don't hear you. There you are.
Okay. Can you see the TACT overview?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thanks for your interest today, and thanks, Elaine and TerraWorks, for including us in this opportunity to share our work together, and especially to highlight our client, Proyecto Mirador. TACT was created almost 6 years ago to really tenaciously support our clients who are looking to scale, grow, and drive certain types of impacts around the globe. And our process typically starts by understanding the strategy of the organization, going deep into what are the life cycles that are needed to manage point A to point B for an organization to do their work, to understand the user story of the people who are touching and connecting to that technology. And then ultimately, with those things in mind, we can therefore build appropriate and aligned technology. We've done about 120 projects, worked with over 50 clients in various parts of the world. We are a Salesforce partner and very specifically also an applications partner, and we're currently located in Boulder, Colorado. Today we wanted to focus on how one of our clients, Proyecto Mirador, is using our app Mobile SMS, and especially in concert with TerraWorks. It's very complicated processes to run offline mobile, field staff, office staff, and to have some things that just run appropriately and automated and simplify complex life cycles. And ideally, if we can simplify the user story and the user experience, then we've accomplished something even better. Oftentimes that means that the data is going to be cleaner, the access to that data is going to be easier, and people can make good decisions with that data. Our app, Mobly, has been evolving since 2012, and we're really excited that it was released on the App Exchange this fall. And it really allows us to do many things inside of Salesforce. Simply send and receive text messages, allows you to do bulk messaging, and I think what's very exciting, especially in this sort of scenario, is it allows us to create surveys or query function, meaning you can send out a single message to an individual or a group of people and then allow them to interact automatically with their responses. The query function opens another component, which you'll see later in the demonstration, where an organization, an individual can text into Mobly, and then choose their pathway and interact either to get information or notify the organization that they need to be in touch with them. If you have any interest, you can see the number up here on the right. You can text in and interact with Mowgli. Simply text hashtag Mowgli hashtag, and you'll be able to see how Mowgli works. I'll let Esther jump in here to talk about Proyecto Mirador and share a little bit about why they're doing what they're doing and why they've been using Salesforce, TerraWorks, and Mowgli.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So my name is Esther Adams. I've been working with Proyecto Mirador since about 2006. We are a nonprofit that is headquartered in Honduras, and we build fuel-efficient cook stoves based on the La Justa model cook stove. They're called 2x3 in rural Honduras, and we are financed by selling gold standard certified voluntary market carbon offsets. For this purpose and also for maintenance of our operations and our expansion, we are operating on a Salesforce.com based monitoring platform. So I'll go into a little more detail about that, but mostly I just want to give you an overview of the organization so that you get a sense of who we are. Next slide. So really the story of Proyecto Mirador started in 1998 with Hurricane Mitch, which came through Honduras and just devastated the infrastructure. And after that, Richard and Dee Lawrence, who are our founding directors, started making medical missions with a team of doctors from Baltimore down to Honduras to treat the rural poor. They would set up clinics in the town of Atima and bus people in from the surrounding areas where they didn't have access to health care. And over, what they noticed is that many cases of respiratory illness were coming through the clinics. There would be lines of mostly women and children against the wall, sucking on nebulizers and, coming with cardiopulmonary issues. And for a while, they didn't look into why that was, but then one day their daughter Sky had the opportunity to go out into the field with one of the doctors, and it became immediately obvious what the problem was. The people in rural Honduras cook on highly inefficient wood-burning cook stoves that are essentially an open fire with a rudimentary steel cooktop called a plancha just stuck over the fire. So rural families throughout Central America, and in our case we serve Honduras, but throughout Latin America cook on cook stoves, and indeed it's a problem throughout the world. These stoves are in use up to 8 hours a day. They consume a lot of wood, and whether or not they have a chimney, there is smoke just billowing into the kitchen because the draft is not efficiently focused. So, as you can imagine, these traditional cook stoves cause a lot of health issues. And so our stoves, the 2x3, are designed to replace the Honduran cooking stove in the same style of cooking so that they don't have to make big adjustments to their cooking practices, but we give them a stove that is functionally similar and replaces the old one with something that's well designed based on rocket fuel combustion technology and ventilates the smoke outside of the house while burning wood cleaner and using about half the amount of traditional stoves. And it helps the rural poor of Honduras in so many ways, not only by assisting them with better health, but it also helps them economically by reducing the time that they need to spend collecting fuel wood, or if they purchase wood, by reducing the cost of it, obviously by 50% if they're using half the wood, and reducing carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Each cook stove reduces carbon emissions by about 3 tons a year. Over the life of the project, we've actually reduced about 1 million tons of carbon, which is a substantial environmental impact, by installing over 130,000 Cookstoves across Honduras so far. And of course, the reduction in fuel wood use also helps prevent forest degradation. And the last benefit is one that might not be so obvious, but we employ many Hondurans in an area where full-time employment is very difficult to find. This project is designed to scale easily. We use a system of micro-enterprises to both produce the parts and build the Cookstoves in-house. And at the moment, we've got 21 local micro-enterprises based down there in Honduras and 145 jobs for Hondurans. And I believe that we are the largest non-governmental employer in our part of Honduras, which is mostly in the western provinces. Next slide. So here's a picture of a traditional stove, a woman standing by her stove on the left, and you can see the cook smoke just coming straight into the kitchen. And on the right, of course, this is a Proyecto Mirador 2x3 cook stove, and a woman happily cooking tortillas and a couple of other pots on there too. These are plancha-style cook stoves. The plancha is that large rectangular cooktop on the top, which is steel, and it enables us to have, 3 or 4 pots going while still being able to make tortillas on the side. Next slide. So when I first started working with Mirador, it was when we first started thinking about carbon finance. And each stove, like I said, reduces a certain amount of carbon, about 3 tons a year, or maybe 14 to 17 over the life of the stove. And those carbon tons that are reduced, we quantify, and we have them certified by the gold standard so that we can sell them on the open market in order to finance the project. And before 2011, well, first of all, we were certified to sell these carbon credits as of 2009. And at that time, we were running our operations completely on paper. We had a very incredibly organized office. I've never seen an office so organized on paper, but it was all on paper. And at that time we were, I think in 2009 we were building around 3,000 to 5,000 stoves a year, up from I think maybe under 100 in our founding year, which was 2004. But it was starting to reach some high numbers and get a little bit, inefficient. And so each stove that we build, we have beneficiary information. The owner of the stove, we track their government ID, their their name. There aren't really addresses in a lot of the places where we work, but we track locating information. And all of this data was just being written down on kind of survey sheets and tracked in Excel spreadsheets. We also visit every stove 3 times after construction in order to make sure that the beneficiaries are properly trained in the use and maintenance of their stove. And all of that information, we collect information on the state of the cook stove and the maintenance and so forth every time we go into their houses. So that was all being entered manually. And when it came time to start verifying our carbon credits, we have annual audits to do that, where we go on site in Honduras with a United Nations designated operational entity, or DOE. So it's basically an audit once a year so that we can certify our carbon credits. And when that started, the verification started making us see the need to digitize. It was difficult to pull information on the fly when we were on site. Although it was always available, it was not always easy to access. So next slide shows a few of our paper systems that were starting to get a little out of control. Next slide. So in 2011, Stephen, who you heard from a moment ago, and TACT L3C, started consulting with us on how we might streamline our operations, and we settled on the Salesforce.com platform for its flexibility, for the fact that there are a lot of outsourced developers who have already made plugins that do various things that can be relevant to different types of operations. And we, I think we lost our slide there.
Just a second here. Close.
Oh, sorry, folks. Well, I'll keep talking anyway. So anyway, when we implemented Salesforce, we implemented a database that could hold, information on each household individually, and also tie it to all of the survey data that we had on each household. We began to collect GPS information on every household. So at this point, we're able to collect GPS information, reference photographs, collect contact information, access all the surveys, and also perform some fairly sophisticated back-end reporting functions. One of the important modes of collection has been handheld devices. So our supervisors are out in the field collecting information, formerly on iPhones, and we recently moved to Android. And so they're out in the field collecting surveys, and that information is available real-time on Salesforce.com. However, a lot of the areas where we operate, as Elaine mentioned and as Stephen mentioned, are offline. And so we needed a system that would work both online and offline. And our TACT was able to develop for us a system that worked well for quite a few years. And as we evolved and grew, it became, necessary to start reevaluating our equipment, our systems. And so for the last year or so, we've been doing that. Can you give me the next slide, please? This is just an example of, oh, sorry. So anyway, now that we have Salesforce going, our verifications have become so much easier. There's a lot of transparency that the applications afford us. I'm able to, if I'm asked a complicated question during an audit, all I have to do is call it up, create a very simple report, and the answers are all right there. If they want to know something about a specific household, I can get it. Or if they want to know something about a trend, I can get it. If they want to know how many stoves were built in a certain area in a certain month, I can get it. If they ask something about a certain area and how many stoves have been abandoned in that area and where the highest drop-off rates, I can get that information. And as you can imagine, all of that information is also extremely helpful in managing our own operations. And another thing that is facilitated during the audits very well by this system is the fact that we can find any household, and you wouldn't believe how rural the places are that we are going. Oftentimes we're 2 and 3 hours up a lumpy dirt road in the middle of rural Honduras, and we can just look at our maps on our phones and locate these houses. So anyway, this has streamlined everything tremendously. Next slide. This is an example of a dashboard that Salesforce sends us every week that helps us keep on track with how many surveys we're collecting. We can even keep track of individual employees and spot problems with their performance based on how many, if it's a stove builder, we can spot issues with construction that are specific to that contractor's operations. If there's a supervisor that isn't performing well, maybe he's not collecting enough surveys, or we see something that just doesn't look right, we're able to dig in and go right to the source and explain it. Next slide. So I'm going to pass this over to my colleague, Ranieri. Ranieri Rodriguez is our, he's our gerente de TI, which is our manager of IT down in Honduras. And over the last year, we've been reviewing our systems and processes and, you know, ended up in a really beneficial partnership with TerraWorks. And Ranieri is going to explain a little bit about some of our latest developments and how TerraWorks and how Mowgli have been integrated with our system in Salesforce to make our system even better. Go ahead, Ranieri.
Thank you, Esther. Hi, everyone. Well, I would like to talk a little bit about why updates were made in Proyecto Mirador. We have been working with Firesol technology, collecting data in Salesforce Classic, but the last year it became very slow. It wasn't good enough with the Salesforce Classic performance, so we also decided to replace our iPhones because iPhones are very expensive and the cell phones are broken easily in the field. That's why we wanted to move to Android devices, could be by using tablets, smartphones, or handhelds. We also needed to upgrade our workflow to improve our operations because the organization grew up and technology now is better, and we were using 5 years old technology. And we also wanted to improve our operations in the field. And we were thinking that Salesforce Classic is almost out of the market. So what we did is to identify our needs. The first one is to improve surveys. We needed to add more questions to surveys. And we also needed to digitalize documents like registration forms, government IDs, and some other documents that we need in Proyecto Mirador. We also wanted to be able to record GPS location for each household. We wanted to be able to correct account names, phone numbers, emails, and some other data inside Salesforce. We wanted to attach photos to our surveys. We wanted also to scan barcodes and grab the information from it. We needed a software that could be easily integrated with Salesforce. That it's our backbone, let's say. And all this had to be offline. So it was very difficult at the beginning, and we were evaluating some alternatives, some software that we have online. Maybe please move to the next slide. So we created a matrix of options based on cost, development time, stability, facility of maintenance, and the integration with Salesforce. We evaluated Telerik, Resco, some other Android development tools, and TerraWorks. At the end, we choose TerraWorks. And why we choose TerraWorks? Because the speed of development and testing, we were able to create a prototype in just a couple of weeks. And in a couple of months, we are able to have a final product, a final system. TerraWorks, it's very easy to configure without coding. It integrates great with Salesforce. I mean, we can use user roles, contacts, and the interface with Salesforce. It's very nice. So that was important part of the decision process. And the most amazing part is that we are able to do field mapping. That means that if we create a survey in TowerWorks, we are able to map one single field to Salesforce. So we don't have to do any coding just by field mapping. Next slide, please. Okay, here we have the field operations. When the inspector goes to a village or to a house, the inspector is able to scan the barcode that it's behind the government ID. TowerWorks gets all the data from that is coding on that barcode, and the inspector just needs to select some different options, and then it's synchronized with Salesforce, and we get the contact name and the government ID number without typing. So this way we avoid typo issues. Did you please move to the next slide? Okay, once we have the account in Salesforce, the stop technician is able to activate that account by using SMS via Mowgli. We do this because in Honduras we don't have good connectivity for cell phones. There are some rural areas that are far away, and we need to use the technology we have. So we don't have internet, and we can use SMS to query data and to update records by using Mowgli, which is amazing. Could you please move to the next slide? Okay. After the construction, we have our supervisors that go to the field, and they go house by house, and they fill up the surveys that we have. Here in TowerWorks, we are able to assign jobs to the supervisor and give them the KML file to look in the map for all those households. They are able to fill up the surveys offline mostly, and they can synchronize when they have good connectivity. They are able to take pictures and also record new GPS locations for each household. Did you please move to the next slide? Well, supervisors also, when they find construction problems, they are able to create a case inside Salesforce by using TowerWorks. They can take pictures if there are any construction problem. They can take the picture, and when the record uploads to Salesforce, Mowgli sends an SMS to the contractor notifying that says that, for instance, we have a problem in this village, and the contractor just clicks on the link, it opens Salesforce 1, and they can see the pictures, and they can see the description of the problem, that they are able to correct these problems ASAP. Can you please move to the next slide? Okay, at the end, with all this information that we collect from TowerWorks goes to Salesforce, and we are able to create reports. In this sample, we have the cases for contractor. We can see that how many cases we have in 60 days, how many. We also can see how many cases we have by village, by contractor, or by technician. So this is very amazing because we can see it in real time. We can see the problems in real time. We also can see how that data has been entered in real time. And that's it. May you please move to the next slide? Okay, I need you, Esther, to explain about the best practices.
Thank you so much, Ranieri. That was great. So I guess just in closing here, I just want to say a few things about how Salesforce has helped us to improve as an organization. It's real flexible. There are a lot of ways that you can partner Salesforce, obviously, with other applications such as Taro and Mowgli in order to scale and evolve the system. Technology, obviously, is never static, and we're always looking at better ways to improve our operations, and this is part of that process. Our approach and the approach of both TACT and TerraWorks with us has been to really deeply understand our operations, our strategies, and then start thinking about tech decisions. That's somewhere where we've been very fortunate to find partners that are truly interested as well as see the value of having a thorough understanding of our needs before making any decisions. We are always, open to new ideas, assessing new systems, new technology that's out there, but also ways to refine the accuracy of the data. And, of course, the latest examples are our ability to scan a barcode from a government ID instead of having our technicians and supervisors input information manually in the field. So the data gets cleaner as the years go on, rather than the data getting away from us as there's more of it collecting. And we're always looking at a several-year horizon when we put things in place. And this, this slide here says 3 to 5 years, but the place that, or the software and the system that we put in place in 2011 has served us very well until now. And we are now positioned for the next several years. And the main point that I want to drive home is that our system in Salesforce.com being data-driven has enabled us tools that we never would have had otherwise to bring clarity to our whole process, to inform our decision-making processes, and to really hone our operations and keep an eye on things. We have, myself and our 2 US-based directors here managing the carbon finance operations, and the rest of the operations are completely run from Honduras. So this enables our US directors and myself a window into what goes on in the day-to-day operations in a data-driven system, so that we can really keep moving ahead with quality, with productivity, and with a smooth and efficient system. So thank you all, and go ahead and go to the next slide. I believe it's the last one. And I'll turn this back over to Elaine. Thank you all for listening.
Great. Thanks, Esther and Ranieri. This was great and great work. Glad we could highlight it. I think, just to, I guess if you have any questions, definitely type them into the chat window. I had a couple questions for the SMS portion. Maybe this is for Ranieri. How sort of TerraWorks and Mowgli work together. How does the SMS get triggered to the technician? Is that from a TerraWorks thing, or is it triggered from the Salesforce side?
Yeah, well, when TerraWorks synchronize the cases from the cell phones, it goes to Salesforce, and there is a trigger that sends the SMS using Mowgli. I mean, the trigger is inside Salesforce.
Great. Okay, but it's sort of like an automatic process where ChairWorks is synced and then it triggers the SMS automatically. It's like one flow. That's really cool.
It is automatic.
Cool. And then I thought something was interesting that you said, Esther, at the end. You talked about how you ensure that data gets cleaner over time. I think that's definitely not the case in a lot of systems I've seen. Can you go into that a little bit? Just curious.
Yeah, well, I mean, the barcode scanning is just one example of that, but we have internal auditing processes that we have developed around our Salesforce system. We know where the points are where things can get mixed up. Like if you're entering a GPS mark by hand or something like that, you know, sometimes if you're on your telephone in the field gathering a GPS mark, for example, sometimes if you're on a phone, sometimes it does something screwy and you end up with one that's wrong. And we've developed systems so that we can gather multiple GPS points, and it takes the one that makes the most sense and puts it front and center in the system. You can mark which one's the best one. Another example would just be, you know, running reports. We have reports that we've just put together specifically to pinpoint places where data can get, you know, for example, if we have a stove entered and we are missing information on the beneficiary, on the location, anything, we can run a report that right away shows every record where that information is missing. You know, just by searching and sorting and things like that, we can keep the data pretty clean that way. Does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, great, thanks. Catherine Chalikian of Nextleaf, I'm going to unmute you to ask your question. Let me see. Oops. Oops. Catherine?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm from Nextleaf Analytics, and my company also works with clean cookstove interventions, but in another part of the world, in India. And I was wondering if you have been able to use the technologies that you have mentioned to determine like how or like when or where you send out supervisors for house visits. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, definitely. I could either take that or Ranieri could.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Ranieri.
Like that.
Right. No, this is a central part of our operations. Ranieri, do you want me to go ahead and explain it? I'll just go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay. So we do have a system in the office. We actually have an employee in the office that is assigned to programming the supervisors, and she sits in the office every morning and deploys specific lists of households to our supervisors so that she can always track where they are, track their performance, and they don't have to have so much data on their phones that it gets bogged down. So yeah, that's been a really useful aspect of the system.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We have another question from David Whitfield. He's interested in the details of the information that can be collected. Besides basic demographic information, what are you collating?
Right. So for the gold standard carbon certification, it's necessary to prove all of the claims that you're making. This gold standard is based on the CDM, the Clean Development Mechanism, which is the whole body of regulations for carbon compliance. But the gold standard goes a step further, and we need to prove a lot of information about sustainable benefits of the project, about leakage, and about stove abandonment in particular. And so all of the information that we collect in our surveys specific to leakage, sustainability, and abandonment drop-off is managed inside Salesforce.com. So we have different types of surveys that are collected in the field on handheld devices, and then all of that data feeds back into the information, into the central database, and all of the information is tied to the household to which the survey pertains. And then we can run back-end reporting functions that are pretty robust and flexible using the Salesforce desktop software.
David, let me unmute you just in case you have any follow-up to that. David? Okay, great. Sounds like that was, the answer was fine. Okay, great. We also had a question from, let's see, Julie Carandong. Can you please give an example of how the Salesforce technology helped you retrieve and organize data that directly led to program changes?
Oh, that's a good question. So you just, she wants an example, right?
Yes.
Yeah, let's see. Ranieri, do you have a good example? I'm kind of drawing a blank on specifics here. I think maybe Ranieri would be a better person being, you know, in the day-to-day operations to answer that.
Yeah, well, it's an example about how Salesforce really have to treat and organize data. I'm a little bit confused about this question.
Oh, okay, sorry. I think she's just looking for a place where we use the data to refine our operations from day to day.
I think you had mentioned some examples of like finding anomalies and being able to.
Do you want to say a little bit maybe about the system that you established to correct data in the field? And
yeah, well, I think I get it. It's in the case of well, construction problems, we are able to identify who is committing more mistakes, let's say, and we're able to see what part of the stove it's getting more troubles. So that way we can review all that information, and we can improve, let's say, our parts, or we can improve the parts for the stove.
yeah, I can add to that a little bit too. We were running into a situation over the last couple of years where we were realizing there were just some stoves that, even though they appeared to be completely fine and built perfectly to specifications, just weren't heating up enough. And of course, when you have stoves that aren't heating up efficiently, you run into abandonment issues. And so we were able to collect data on all of those stoves and open cases so that we had a designated supervisor to go and specifically analyze those cases and determine some of the factors that were contributing, which ended up being related to draft, and it was mostly, you know, things like positioning of the chimney relative to the rooftop. So pinpointing specific things about construction is a really big area where our system has helped us to, you know, to refine our operations. And we also are able to use the data to pinpoint maybe a specific employee who's underperforming that might need new training. And we also can target areas where our training operations are deficient and refine our training practices so that everybody is trained in a more uniform way and everybody is receiving the best and most accurate training possible for construction and supervision.
Great. We have a question from Rob Lavoie of AirTerra. Where did it go? How long does it take how long did it take for you to set up the gold standard carbon certification, and does your group advise on this process?
We don't act as consultants to other organizations. We have chosen to do all of the carbon certification work in-house, with the exception of lab testing and data analysis of fuel wood consumption data and so forth. We don't have, in our U.S. operations, which are responsible for carbon finance, we don't have a scientist on staff. But anyway, the question of how long it took is a very nebulous question. I would say from start to finish, from the time that we started researching the process and the best way to go about it, and started doing all the testing that was necessary, which we used Aprovecho Research Center for, to the time that we actually got certified was about probably 3 years. And I just want to make the point that it's very capital intensive, and it takes a while to start getting returns. We started to scale very rapidly after getting the gold standard certification, but in order to actually start seeing substantial returns on the carbon credits that were generated from the project, you might add another couple of years on there. So, it definitely requires substantial stable startup capital to get you through that certification process.
Great. Rob also had a follow-up comment and question. So I think he speaks for a lot of us that it seems like this requires a bit of on-the-ground support, but that he's very impressed that your organization has progressed with this method of quantifying credits and subsidizing cooking stoves. And his follow-up question is if you know of any organizations that use a similar approach for biochar cook stoves.
That's a really good question, and I encourage you to send me an email offline. I actually don't have anybody off the top of my head, but I can certainly put you in touch with people that would be able to answer that question. Great, Rob. I think the emails are just on the screen here, so feel free to reach out to any of us. Great. Another question here from Paul Anderson. Where are your carbon offsets being sold? Yeah, that's, well, I think as with most organizations that are selling them, it's been a slow market for several years. So I think part of the answer is wherever we can, but, we try to attract larger corporate buyers rather than one-off, small sales, because it just takes too much energy. Is there sort of a marketplace for like an internet site or? There are several, and it depends on, what your certification body is and what your objectives are. But it's a pretty broad question. But again, you're welcome to email me offline for a deeper conversation about that. But the general answer is that we're, always open to partnerships with larger corporate buyers. Great. I think, Paul, your other questions, maybe you can follow up with Esther directly as well. Great. I think that's it for questions, last call for questions. I think in the meantime, I just want to thank Esther and Ranieri from Proyecto Mirador. Great work. Glad that we're able to support you on this. And thank you, Stephen, for hosting us as well. Great. And thanks, Stephen, for sharing all of the work that you've done to get Proyecto Mirador to this place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. I appreciate
Thanks,
the
everybody.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.